Easy.
Not the yeah. Smooth shit. Yeah.
Pull up the block spinning, new ride and my girlfriend's master presidential inside.
Yeah.
Ray-Bans on my eyes. We done bruised in charge, I don't know why they still be looking surprised. Add fuel to my fire, take it higher than they ever seen. My life a movie and I'm living out the best scenes. They call me cocky, in reality I'm confident. And every night we taking shots to our accomplishments.
Cheers.
A lot of food, put it on my plate, and baby pressing not to tell her to wait. She see the signs of the times and the world is so boring. I'd rather pull out the old schools and new foreigns. Tell me what you want, I'll tell you what you need. Them other niggas stuck, Bruce took the lead. I'm teaching on them streets that I used to run, and afterwards chilling with my Aki on. What's up? Jake's claiming that they own, and they crew is legit.
Yeah.
I see the things that they doing when they do it, but they don't do it like this.
Not at all.
Niggas say that they the bomb, and they really be lit.
What?
I see the things that they doing when they do it.
One.
All praise be to the Most High. Shalom, Israel. Shalom. It is another Bible history class, world history class, going through the Bible. I'm tonight's teacher, Brother Yashamai, to my left. All praise be to the Most High. And from the title, because I know you guys can see it, Cain and Abel, right? We're definitely going to hop into this story. Last week, our brother Shamar went into the history of Adam and Eve. And we're going to continue to progress through the chapters in Genesis just to give our people a holistic understanding of, you know, what was going on and the thing that was left here for us to read, right? So before we start, I just want to continue to every class I do. I like to shout out everybody who's been supporting us over social media, people who have been donating alms. Thank you so much. We appreciate the support. Like, share, subscribe to our channels on YouTube and Facebook at True Nation Israelite Congregation. And just help us continue to do these works. You know, we in these last days trying to wake our people up. Our people is waking up according to the prophecy, so we appreciate the support, and we just ask that you continue to do so. So we're going to go ahead and jump in. I want to get a scripture really quick in Revelation, chapter 1 and verse 3, just to kind of set a foundation, because I've just experienced over my life, right, especially these last 8 years being in the truth, teaching, just experienced so many of our people who don't actually take the time to read the Bible. You know, there's so many questions our people have, and a lot of these questions could be simply answered if we just read the Bible. So let's see what God actually says for us to do concerning his word. Let's read that.
Revelations chapter 1, verse 3. Blessed is he that readeth.
You see that? Blessed is he that actually reads. If you're a person who reads this Bible, God is saying you will be blessed. Because for one, nobody's going to be able to, you know, pull the wool over your face, so to speak, and have you confused with all these ideologies of men and weird theories. It says you won't have to worry about that because you're going to know for yourself firsthand what thus saith the Lord. Go ahead.
And they that hear the words of this prophecy.
It says, and even those who hear the words of the prophecy, because you got some people, they'll try to be funny, be like, well, I can't read. Well, you know what? If you can just listen and actually apply the things that you're being told, then you will also be blessed, right? And the main thing that we're talking about, of course, is the laws, the statutes, and the commandments given to us by God, right? That's the main thing that God is saying you'll be blessed for reading and actually applying in your life. Our people have no idea that the current state that we live in, right, all this hell that we experience in our reality, how dirty our hoods are and how much death and destruction we experience in our neighborhoods, all of that is literally happening because we don't read the Bible, right? And we're not doing the things that God is telling us to do within the Bible. So that's why we're not seeing blessed conditions, right? On the contrary, we're seeing cursed conditions. So read that from the top again.
Blessed is he that readeth,
Yeah.
and they that hear the words of this prophecy, and keep those things which are written therein.
You see, and that's the part right there, keeping those things that's written therein, right? So tonight is a good story. You know, going back to the time of Genesis, a lot of that history is a little dark concerning, like, those who be like, oh, show me artifacts from, you know, Adam and Eve and show me Cain and Abel's bones. Look, we can't do that, right? But we know that the testimonies of the Lord are sure. They're tried and proven. in multiple ways. One of the main things we know that this Bible is true is dealing with the prophecy. There hasn't been one prophecy that has failed yet, right? So we know that the testimonies are true in this Bible. And when we read some of these stories about our forefathers and our ancestors, it's a reason why it was recorded, right? It's so that we could learn from it, that we could look at this and know what we should and should not do in our lives moving forward. So, you know, with all of that being understood, let's go ahead and jump over to Genesis chapter 4. I'm not going to recap everything that Brother Shamar went over concerning Adam and Eve. Y'all just go back and watch that lesson. It was a great lesson. Well, we're just going to pick up, right? So we're going to start at Genesis chapter 4 and verse 1. So just remember, you know, God, he got done creating the earth in 6 days, and he rested on the seventh. Everything was here. He said, look, I created man that you guys should have dominion over this earth and the sea. And then from mankind that was actually created, he chose Adam and gave him Eve as a wife, right, to be in control and have that dominant force of God's laws, right, and his authority on this earth. Of course, they messed up. So this is where we pick up from, right? Genesis chapter 4, and let's start at verse 1.
Genesis chapter 4, verse 1, and Adam knew Eve, his wife.
Yeah, so when it says Adam knew his wife, Eve, right? That means they had sexual intercourse. That's what it means to know a person. Go ahead.
And she conceived and bare Cain and said, I have gotten a man from the Lord. And she again bare his brother Abel.
So here it is, Cain and Abel. These is the first offspring of Adam and Eve, right? Go ahead.
And Abel was a keeper of sheep.
So Abel, he was a keeper of sheep. He was a simple guy, right? He was tending to the flock. Go ahead.
But Cain was a tiller of the ground.
But Cain, he was a little bit differently. He was a tiller of the ground. He was out there working in them fields, right? Go ahead.
And in process of time, it came to pass.
And in the process of time, it came to pass. And that's one thing we have to understand about the word that we've been given today, right? It's been abridged. We're not going to get every single minute detail of Cain and Abel's life. It's like the same thing with Jesus Christ, right? They say, well, how can we never read about what Christ was doing when he was 15? Well, it wasn't recorded. And if it was, it just wasn't meant for us to have it right now. What we have is sufficient enough for us to get ourselves together and get back in line with the Most High God, right? So look, in the process of time, meaning these boys was here, they grew up, right? They lived lives, right? They received instruction from their parents, right? They had relationships with people. In the process of time, right? Go ahead.
That Cain brought of the fruit of the ground an offering to the Lord. And Abel, he also brought of the firstlings of his flock and of the fat thereof. And the Lord had respect unto Abel and to his offering.
Con, so let's do this. Let's go over to the book of Malachi, chapter 3 and verse 6. Because one thing I really love about the Bible is there's continuity, right? From cover to cover, the Most High is consistent. You don't see him changing up where it says, you know what, God used to be like this, but then once you flip over to this side of the book, now he's a completely different God. He has completely different morals and an ethical code, right? No, it's the same from cover to cover. And again, that's one of the reasons why God said you'll be blessed when you actually read this word, because you have so many of our people that will believe that the way God was in the New Testament, in the Old Testament, once you get to the New Testament, people act as if he's a whole new God, as if he just woke up and changed his mind, right? And that's not the case. Nobody's able to pull that wool over our heads no more and confound us with those lies. Now we're actually breaking down those lies and those strongholds for our people, right? So all praise be to the Most High for that. So let's read that. Malachi chapter 3 and verse 6.
Malachi chapter 3, verse 6. For I am the Lord, I change not.
You see that? For this is the Most High God, Yahweh. He does not change, right? Go ahead.
Therefore, ye sons of Jacob are not consumed.
And it's actually for our benefit that God hasn't changed, because if God did change his mind and all of a sudden decided to forget the promises and the covenants that he made with our forefathers, then we would be in a very, very bad state. That means we wouldn't have a kingdom of heaven to look forward to, which means we wouldn't have any type of eternal life to look forward to, which means we would have captivity upon captivity to look forward to. So, you know, it's really all praise be to the Most High, a blessing that he does not change. And saying all that to say, when we're reading this account in Genesis, right, and we have the two boys, Cain and Abel, bringing an offering to the Most High God, This is something that you see constant throughout the Bible, right? People have been giving offerings to the Most High God. People have been doing sacrifice to the Most High God. Let's get Deuteronomy chapter 16 and verse 16. Because what's interesting about this one is you see where it says that Cain brought of the fruit of the ground in offering unto the Lord, and Abel he also brought of the firstlings of his flock and the fat thereof. It's a reason why that was said and why that was happening. Let's read that, Deuteronomy 16 and 16.
Deuteronomy chapter 16, verse 16. 3 times in a year shall all thy males appear before the Lord thy God.
Right, so we're the actual descendants, and you can read about this in the book of Luke. It talks about the genealogy of the sons of God, right? We descend from Adam. From Adam, we have inherited the blessings and the covenant of God of everlasting life and rulership and dominion, right? So the customs that you see the sons of God doing in Genesis is some of the same customs that we're still doing unto this very day. So remember, it said Abel, he brought the firstlings of his flock. Let's read.
In the place which he shall choose in the feast of unleavened bread.
Right, so God said, look, there's 3 times in a year that you Israelite men need to appear before me. He said, what was the first one?
In the feast of unleavened bread.
So the feast of unleavened bread, also known as Passover. Go ahead.
And in the feast of weeks.
And the feast of weeks, also called the feast of first fruits, where we give the firstlings and the best that we have back to the Most High God as a token of thanks and gratitude, right? Cain and Abel was doing the exact same thing back there in Genesis. So let's go back and read that. And that's why I said there's continuity with this, right? So read that again, verse 3.
And in the process of time, it came to pass that Cain brought of the fruit of the ground and offering to the Lord.
So remember, Cain's job, he was a tiller of the ground. He worked in the field. So whatever he felt like was the best that grew up in the field at that time, that's what he provided to the Most High God as an offering. And then it says Abel, his little brother, go ahead.
And Abel, he also brought of the firstlings of his flock.
Remember, he was a keeper of sheep and a keeper of lambs. So he brought him a firstling of his flock, right? What he felt was the best and most honorable thing to give to the Most High God. Read.
And of the fat thereof. And the Lord had respect unto Abel and to his offering.
You see, it said God had respect unto Abel and unto his offering, right? Let's get the definition of respect really quickly. I'm going to get the actual dictionary definition, and then we're going to get in the Strong's just so we can see what exactly is being said. Because you have scriptures that say things like God is not a respecter of persons. So we just want to get a holistic understanding and feel for what the Bible is talking about, because the Most High is not a liar, right? There's no hypocrisy. There's only misunderstandings from those who are unlearned, right? So let me pull up my dictionary app, and let's get respect. It says, a relation or reference to a particular thing or situation, an act of giving particular attention or consideration, high or special regard, also esteem. So now we can get it in the actual Strong's. And we have here H8159, sha'al. It says a primitive root. It says, by implication, to consider. Also, to gaze at or about properly for help. And then again, consider. So we see that the Most High highly esteemed what it was that Abel was giving as a sacrifice, because he had respect unto it. And it's the same thing with the children of Israel. He has regard for us and what we do here on this earth, right? And that's the thing, too, also dealing with the book of Genesis. There's a lot of correlation between, you know, what was going on then and also the spirit that had been passed down to us and also our brother Esau, according to the Bible, right? But let's read on. Go ahead.
And Abel, he also brought of the firstlings of his flock and of the fat thereof, and the Lord had respect unto Abel and to his offering. But unto Cain and to his offering he had not respect.
So it says when it came down to Cain's offering, the Most High did not really consider it, and he didn't regard it as much, meaning it couldn't have been that great of an offering, because if someone gives you a super great gift, you ain't got no choice but to be like, man, thank you. But that lets you know that there was a difference in spirit, and we're going to learn exactly what that is as we continue to read on, right? So hold that. Let's go to the book of Amos, chapter 3 and verse 3. Because we can show you here, you know, exactly what that respect looks like and what it looked like for Abel and Cain back then, right? Because now it says the Most High has respect unto Israel. And this is exactly what it's getting into, which is to consider or to highly regard. So Amos chapter 3 and verse 3.
Book of Amos, chapter 3, verse 3. Can two walk together except they be...
Start at verse 1.
Verse 1. Hear this word that the Lord had spoken against you, O children of Israel.
Right, O children of Israel, because we descend from the sons of God, right? Adam, read.
Against the whole family which I brought up from the land of Egypt, saying, you only have I known of all the families of the earth.
You see that? It says out of everybody else that is on this earth, all the different families, you got Arab families, Hamitic families, right? You got so-called white people, so-called Asians, all these different families and nationalities here on this earth. And God said, I only know you, Israel. That means God has respect unto us. He highly regards us or considers us in the things that we do. Go ahead.
Therefore, I will punish you for all your iniquities.
Exactly, and that's why, again, you're going to see the correlation with the story in Genesis as we continue to read. When God is paying attention to what you do, he says, look, your actions got some heavier judgments behind them, right? Everybody else, I'm not too concerned about what they're doing, but you better make sure you walking straight and narrow or else, right? So let's jump back over. And actually, before we get that, get Exodus chapter 2 and verse 25.
Verse 3 or no?
No, I don't need verse 3. You know,
Exodus chapter 2.
Yeah, Exodus chapter 2 and verse 25, because I want to show y'all. I don't want nobody thinking I'm just pulling this stuff out of my butt. Go ahead.
Verse 1.
25.
Exodus chapter 2, verse 25. And God looked upon the children of Israel, and God had respect unto them.
Exactly. So you can see the Most High, again, acknowledging us as people he has respect unto. He considers the things that we're doing. So when we're going back to the book of Genesis, right, what do you think was being considered? Before these brothers gave their offering, right, or their sacrifice to the Most High, before it said, look, and in the process of time. So the Most High was considering the way that these two men was living their lives. Abel was living a certain type of lifestyle, and Cain was living a certain type of lifestyle. And the Most High was pleased and accepting of the way that Abel was living. And he said, you know what? I got respect unto what you're giving me. I appreciate it. But now when it came down to Cain, the Most High wasn't too pleased on how that man had to be living his life, and then especially the offering that he gave him. So let's pick back up at verse 5. Genesis chapter 4 and verse 5.
Genesis chapter 4, verse 5. But unto Cain and to his offering he had not respect. And Cain was very wroth, and his countenance fell.
And now here's the thing, right? Dealing with Cain and the spirit that he had. He was so forward and so prideful therein, instead of humbling down and acknowledging that what he gave wasn't his best, and in terms of his life, he wasn't doing his best to serve the Most High. Instead, he turns around and gets upset with the Most High. Read.
And the Lord said unto Cain, why art thou wroth?
And now you got the Most High asking him, like, so, what you got a problem with? You acting as if I did something to you. You chose to live your life, and you chose to give this whack offering that you gave me, right? But go ahead.
And why is thy countenance fallen? If thou do well, shalt thou not be accepted?
And you know, and it's crazy because when we read stories like this, it's for our learning, and we're going to get that precept next. You know, these are things that we should be taking notes on and making sure that we're living a certain type of lifestyle, because these principles that's being stated, and because that's what they are, is principles, right? They're supposed to be followed, right? We're supposed to execute these things moving forward. God told Cain, look, what you upset about? Why is your countenance falling? Don't you know that if you do well, you're going to be accepted? That's a message to us as Israelites. Don't we know that if we do well, the Most High is going to accept us? But what's the flip side to that? Go ahead.
And if thou dost not well, sin lieth at the door.
Exactly. And that's when we start to get into an iniquitous lifestyle, right? Just being amongst evil, right? Doing things that are not pleasing to the Most High. If you're not doing well, sin is waiting for you at the door because the Most High, he can't put you in the middle. He said you got to either be hot or cold. Don't be lukewarm, right? And so that's what we as Israelites face on our walk. If we do well, the Most High is going to accept us. But if we don't do well, then that's when we find ourselves being tempted by Satan and sin, right? But let's read on.
And unto thee shall be his desire, and thou shalt rule over him.
Exactly. So real quick, go to the book of Romans, chapter 15 and verse 4. Because again, we shouldn't take these testimonies that we're reading about as some type of comic book story or some type of, script that was meant for some type of fantasy. You know, that's what a lot of people do when they read the book of Genesis. They see serpents beguiling Eve, and all of a sudden they think about, king cobra snakes walking around and talking, and they talk about apples when the Bible never says anything about an apple. So, take that understanding and throw it out your mind. Throw it out the window. That's not what we're dealing with, right? It's principles that we're dealing with and legitimate history that we're dealing with, right? So let's get that. Romans 15 and 4.
Romans chapter 15, verse 4. For whatsoever things were written aforetime.
So whatsoever was written aforetime, and that doesn't even exclusively stop with the Bible, but our people's history in general, everything that has been recorded from our times past before we was here is for what?
Were written for our learning.
For our learning. That we should read these things and gain some type of hope in our spirit, right? To be fueled by the testimonies that we're reading about of our foremothers and forefathers who overcame. And then you can actually read about those who were conquered, right, and lost. We have now an example of what to do and what not to do. It's all for our learning. But read on.
That we through patience and comfort of the scriptures.
Through patience and having comfort of these scriptures. Because when you read this word, that's one thing. But when you're actually applying and doing the things that you're reading, that is where you actually get the comfort from. Because when you're doing these laws, when you're actually keeping what God said for us to keep, there's a certain sense of peace that you have within yourself and a certain sense of security, because you know that God said he's going to protect and take care of the ones that actually do his will. So when you put yourself in that position, you actually have comfort from reading these scriptures. I've seen so many times just Israelites, they're not comforted by these words in the Bible. I've even heard them say foolish things like, oh, well, what was written, that was not what the apostles meant. They didn't know what they were talking about, and all type of foolishness, right? You're supposed to take this word and run with it, not trying to add your own thing and taking away to try to create something that makes sense for you. No, all we are is messengers, all right? So read on.
That we through patience and comfort of the scriptures might have hope.
And our hope is that when it's all said and done, that we can actually have a spirit that's more like Abel, being a righteous person and giving up our offerings to the Most High, that'll be well received and respected. And not that we end up like Cain, right? Somebody who was destroyed and hated God in their heart, right? We want to be the complete opposite of that. So let's go back over to the book of Genesis. And let's pick up at let's pick up at 7 again.
Genesis chapter 4, verse 7. If thou do well, shalt thou not be accepted? And if thou dost not well, sin lieth at the door.
Yep, go ahead.
And unto thee shall be his desire, and thou shalt rule over him.
Go ahead.
And Cain talked with Abel, his brother.
So after this happened, right, after Cain got the fierce revelation about himself, right, because that's what we need as people sometimes. Somebody got to get on our head and tell us about ourselves, right? So after he had that encounter with the Most High God, him and his brother was off talking about it. Read.
And it came to pass, when they were in the field, that Cain rose up against Abel, his brother, and slew him.
Man, so we go from this brother feeling some type of way about his offering not being received and respected by the Most High God to where he's so upset, he ends up killing his brother. And, of course, the infamous line that follows this, right? Let's read.
And the Lord said unto Cain, where is Abel, thy brother?
And here go the infamous line. Go ahead.
And he said, I know not. Am I my brother's keeper?
Am I my brother's keeper? For y'all who've seen New Jack City, what he say? Yes, I am. Right? So now you got the Most High dealing with Cain, and God already knows what's going on. And it's crazy because we have conversations with people, and they feel some type of way about the laws that we have to keep. And they say things like, oh, well, if God wanted us to do this, then why would he just put it on us and make us do that? Well, it's because God doesn't want forced love. God didn't create us to be robots, right? And that's the thing. When you actually meditate and ponder upon the scriptures, you start to realize things, right? The angels and the whole host of heaven, they don't have an ability to disobey the Most High God. They all obey. The Most High has given us a greater glory than the angels in heaven if we overcome this world, because we actually have an ability to disobey God and obey. It's fully within our control to do so, right? That's why we get a greater reward for those who overcome this life and all the temptation and sin. It says we're going to be judging the angels and judging the 12 tribes, right? So when we're dealing with our people, because again, these are lessons that we need to learn and that we need to adopt and practice, right? When we're dealing with our people, when we have those times where we're feeling prideful and we have those people that are there trying to correct us, because that's what was happening with Cain and Abel. Cain was talking ish, probably upset about how God was dealing with him, and Abel was right there correcting him. And I'm going to get you a scripture that talks about that, teaching him, showing him how to be accepted and loved by God. And however that conversation went down, Cain wasn't having it. He completely shut up his ears and stopped his ears and said, you know what, I'm sick of it, and ended up murdering his brother in cold blood, right? So God, already understanding what's going on, said, hey, where's your brother? And Cain still going above and beyond in his wickedness, talking about he doesn't know. He already done killed the brother and covered him up. And now he's talking about, I don't know. Am I his mama? Am I my brother's keeper? I'm supposed to know where he's at every single moment of the day? That's wicked, right? But let's read on.
And he said, what hast thou done?
And now he has to open up everything. What have you done? You sitting there lying unto me, and furthermore, you done did this. Go ahead.
The voice of thy brother's blood crieth unto me from the ground.
So this is the first murder that's been recorded in history, right? Go ahead.
And now art thou cursed from the earth, which had opened her mouth to receive thy brother's blood from thy hand.
Exactly. Go to the book of Baruch, chapter 4 and verse 1, because I want to make a point. And this can be for anybody who may be Christian or Catholic that's tuning in to what we're talking about, right? Why is this important? It shows continuity. Why would God be angry with what Cain did to his brother if there was no law and no order? Because you got a lot of people that would sit here and try to say, oh, the laws of God, that came with Moses. No, God's laws have been here since the creation. And that's exactly why Adam and Eve got their butts in trouble, because they disobeyed and broke a law. And now we can see here murder having a punishment. How can you have a consequence or a punishment for a law that doesn't exist? That would be unfair, right? But no, we can see that this law has been here and it will forever remain even into the kingdom. Let's read this. Baruch chapter 4, verse 1.
Baruch chapter 4, verse 1. This is the book of the commandment of God and the law that endureth forever.
You see that? God's law endures forever. It's been here since forever. And that's why it's so important for our people to get that into our minds, because we try to formulate our own doctrines and things like that, you know, due to our own misunderstandings and lack of studying. Don't be that person. It says clearly right here, it says, verse 10, he said, what hast thou done? The voice of thy brother's blood crieth unto me from the ground. Verse 11, and now art thou cursed from the earth. So you can see Cain actually receiving a punishment from the Most High God for the actions that he did, right? But let's read on.
12.
Verse 11 again.
Verse 11, and now art thou cursed from the earth.
So there goes the punishment. The Most High is going to detail it to him, right? Go ahead.
Which hath opened her mouth to receive thy brother's blood from thy hand. When thou tillest the ground, it shall not henceforth yield unto thee her strength.
Exactly. Doesn't mean that he's not going to receive anything, but what he was receiving before when God was blessing the land, that was going to drastically diminish. Go ahead.
A fugitive and a vagabond shalt thou be in the earth.
And it's crazy, like I said, when we read the story of Cain and Abel, there's so many parallels, right? And it's really a lesson for another day, because I didn't want to go that route, but there's so many parallels dealing with the spirit, right, of Jacob and Esau, dealing with also Cain and Abel, still brothers, right? So when we're looking at what Cain's punishment is, you can actually see that's the same characteristics and the same spirit that Esau has today. It says, look, when you till the land, it's not going to give it its strength. It's a reason why we're using GMO and all this type of stuff now, because the Most High is not blessing all of the ways that America has been farming this land. Our people don't even understand that the land is supposed to have Sabbaths. The earth is supposed to have Sabbaths where we don't farm, we don't till the land, we just let it rest. But man, ever since Esau stepped foot over here, he's just been raping the ground of his nutrients and resources for the last 400, 500, 600 years, right? Just raping it. Not giving it no rest to the point now where everything is GMO. I remember years ago, bro, I seen a billboard off of Florence and I think Crenshaw. And it said, it was a banana. It said, engineering a better banana.
Wow. That just show you right there.
Yeah, that shows you right there. And from then, I kid you not, I've been turned off from bananas. I do not mess with them. I want the ones that got those big seeds in it, right? The smaller ones that got those big seeds. It's crazy, but we see that same thing happening, right, over the course of time. So on top of that, he said, look, a fugitive and a vagabond shalt thou be in the earth. When you look at the history of the so-called white man, that fits him to the T. Same spirit. I'm not sitting there saying that Cain is their daddy or nothing like that, but it's the same spirit. These bodies that we have are just vessels, right? And it hosts the spirit. So when we're dealing with the spirit, that's Esau to a T. Literally a man who's a fugitive on the run for crimes that's being committed in the earth because everybody wants to kill him. It's a reason why they ended up in the caves and the sides and the clefts of the rocks. It's because, man, everybody had a hit out on Esau for the way that this person was living, which was barbaric. And it said, and not only that, you was going to be a vagabond, not having a true place to call home. And that was the issue with Cain and why that was such a punishment, because remember, they didn't get to experience of the garden that their parents got kicked out of, right, Eden. So wherever they was at had to be next best. So the fact that you're getting kicked out of the next best, where was he going to go? And it's crazy because there's more parallels with that, right? And we'll get scriptures on it. But let's read on, verse 12.
When thou tillest the ground, it shall not henceforth yield unto thee her strength. A fugitive and a vagabond shalt thou be in the earth.
Right. Go over to Luke chapter 11. So we can see the punishment that was put on Cain. I want to bring this out real quick just so we can get some more understanding on what was going on. Give me Luke chapter 11 and verse 47. Let me get there real quick. Go ahead.
Book of Luke, chapter 11, verse 47. Woe unto you.
Actually, I'm sorry. Start at verse 45 because it's a point that's being made, and who we're dealing with right now is Christ and the people. So go ahead.
Verse 45. Then answered one of the lawyers and said unto him, Master, thus saying, thou reproachest us also. And he said, woe unto you also, ye lawyers.
Look, Christ didn't hold no punches. The lawyers got slick and was like, hey, like, you know, in school when somebody says something, you be like, hey, you talking to me? Like, hey, if it apply to you, then yeah, I'm talking to you. Christ did that same thing. He said, look, woe unto you too then, read.
Woe unto you also, ye lawyers, for ye laid men with burdens grievous to be borne, and ye yourselves touch not the burdens with one of your fingers.
Read.
Woe unto you, for ye build the sepulchres of the prophets.
So it says, woe unto you, for ye build the sepulchres of the prophets, which is a burial site, right? Tombs and things like that. It says, ye build the sepulchres of the prophets. Go ahead.
And your fathers killed them.
And it said, your fathers killed them. Because when you look at historically what happened with the prophets of Israel, a lot of them were chastised, right? A lot of them were killed, persecuted by the people of Israel for the simple fact that they wanted to be wicked. And when the prophets was here, they was teaching them to be everything but that, according to the word of the Most High God. Let's read on.
Truly ye bear witness that ye allowed the deeds of your fathers.
It says, and this is the crazy part, it says, truly ye bear witness that ye allow the deeds of your fathers, right? And that's one of the conversations that we have with so-called white people today, right, concerning white privilege. They would like to argue and say that white privilege doesn't exist, or, well, I didn't bring anybody into slavery. I didn't do this. But the lifestyle that you're living, you're making it seem like what your forefathers did was okay and that you're okay with it because you're not doing nothing to reverse that around. And the same exact thing goes for us, Israel, today. Our forefathers loved sin. That's what got us in America today as slaves, because our forefathers loved sin. So if you're an Israelite in 2022 that still loves sin, you're okay with what our forefathers did. You're okay with the forefathers who killed the prophets. You're okay with the forefathers who murdered Yahushua. You're okay with our forefathers who murdered Stephen, who murdered John the Baptist. You're okay with all of that because it's showing in your actions, and that's how God is looking at it. Clearly, because Christ is saying it. Christ and the Most High is on one mind, one accord. All right, so go ahead.
For they indeed killed them, and ye build their sepulchres. Therefore also said the wisdom of God, I will send them prophets and apostles, and some of them they shall slay and persecute.
Exactly, and that's according to the wisdom of the Most High. He said, look, some of y'all going to take an L. Some of y'all is going to lose y'all lives being prophets for my sake and for our King Yahushua's sake. But it's all good because we're going to live again. Go ahead. And the thing is, too, they kill you in more ways than just one. If they don't physically kill you, right, and I talked about that in my song called Ghetto Guillotine, right? They want to chop the head off your dreams. That's that ghetto guillotine. They want to reduce you to nothing, to where your name means squat in this earth, right? To where you're still physically living, but everybody's dead to you now. They're killing us on multiple ways. Go ahead.
That the blood of all the prophets, which was shed from the foundation of the world, may be required of this generation.
Exactly. Now check this out. It said all the prophets since the world began, since this world was created, that have been shed, right? The blood of the prophets. Read.
From the blood of Abel.
From the blood of who?
From the blood of Abel.
So Christ is acknowledging, and the Bible is acknowledging Abel as a prophet. So now we're not too confused or scratching our head as to why Cain murdered his brother, because we know historically the prophets have been getting killed by their own people, right? So let's get the definition of a prophet. This is the definition of prophet. It says, one who utters divinely inspired revelations, the writer of one of the prophetic books of the Bible, one regarded by a group of followers as the final authoritative revealer of God's will, one gifted with more than ordinary spiritual and moral insight, one who foretells future events. So we can see that there's a lot more to being a prophet than just being able to foretell future events, right? And I'm not talking about, you know what, I foresee by the end of this year, 500 people are going to die. Like, people die every day, B, right? No, but getting specific, being like, you know what, not only is 500 people going to die, but they're going to die on this day, and this is how they're going to die, and this is what's going to happen immediately after they die. That's being prophetic. Yeah. A lot of us haven't been blessed with visions and things like that of the Most High today because a lot of it's already written down. Now we're reciting it, and that was the first definition. It says, one who utters divinely inspired revelations. We know that the men who wrote this Bible, the men and women who wrote this Bible, were inspired by the Spirit of the Most High God. So us being those descendants, we're reading and teaching out of this book. That makes us prophets, all right? So let's get Isaiah chapter 58 and verse 1. So we can try to get some understanding as to why Cain possibly killed his brother Abel. Go ahead.
Isaiah chapter 58, verse 1. Cry aloud, spare not, lift up thy voice like a trumpet.
Now here it is. This is directives, right, for a prophet or an apostle. It says, cry aloud and spare not. What aren't we supposed to spare, right?
We're not supposed to spare anyone's feelings.
We're not supposed to spare anybody's feelings. So you could only imagine the conversation that was going on between Cain and Abel. You know, Hollywood and TV, media, they like to portray the prophets as weak, frail, and soft individuals. When you stand on righteousness, you really stand on that, and you're willing to die for it. Our forefathers weren't no punks. It's a reason why they were killed for being prophets, because they spoke up exactly on the wickedness that was going on, and they would tell somebody to their face about all the foul ways that they had about themselves. And that's not a comfortable feeling for somebody to be coming down on you rough and harshly about the things that you're not doing right. Some people, they lash out. And what that looks like is the form of murder in some cases. Fights, stabbings, right? Shootouts. Some people get offended. But that's why Christ said, blessed is he who is not offended in me. Because Christ offended a lot of people. But the way he offended them wasn't going around and calling them out their names. He was saying, no. And if I did call you out your name, the reason why is because you're being evil. And if you don't change, God is going to kill you. You start telling people that, they feel a type of way about you. They feel a type of way about you, right? Go to Jeremiah 28 and 28. Let's get another example on what the prophets was doing when they was here. Jeremiah chapter 28 and verse 8.
Jeremiah chapter 28, verse 8. The prophets that have been before me and before thee of old.
So look, the prophets that was here way before us, way before our forefathers, since the beginning of time, this is what they were doing. Go ahead.
Prophesied both against many countries.
They prophesied against things. The prophets wasn't for too many things that the people was doing, else they wouldn't have to be there. Right? Christ said, look, to those who are whole, they need no physician. But those who are sick need the physicians. That's why the prophets is here, to heal the sick. Right? Those who are sick in the mind and sick in spirit, still loving sin. So our forefathers, right, they prophesied against many countries and what?
And against great kingdoms of war and of evil.
And of evil. These is the conversations that was happening between Cain and Abel. Remember, the Most High already told him, don't you know if you live like this, you're going to be accepted? And if you don't, this is what it's going to be like. So Abel was just expounding on that. Look, bro. For one, you should be ashamed of yourself because you gave this whack-ass offering to the Most High. You know he wasn't going to be pleased with that. And that's why even in today's time, we got to watch ourselves. When it comes down to things that we offer to the Most High, you better make sure it's the best. It's a sign and a show of gratitude because you're thankful for what he's given you. Give it back, right? So when it comes down to Feast of First Fruits, ladies and gentlemen of Israel, don't be just going to the store and picking up some, some half-ass pound cakes. And if you're going to get a cake where the icing has been smushed all on the top, and give the Most High the best. If you're going to cook something, put your foot in it for real, right? So, dealing with the prophets of old, right? And the conversation that had to be going on, he said, look, you should be ashamed of yourself. You see how I'm living, right? You see what me, mom, and dad is focused on. We live in a lifestyle of righteousness. We trying to make up for what they messed up. Why you living like this? You're going to continue to lead us down this road, and we're going to eventually end up this, that, and this. And he was tired of hearing it. He says, you know what? Hit him over the head with a rock or whatever it was, right? Slayed him because he didn't want to be corrected. But it's nothing new. That's what happened to a lot of the prophets of old. Let's read on, though.
The prophet,
Verse 9, yeah.
The prophet which prophesieth of peace, when the word of the prophet shall come to pass, then shall the prophet be knowing that the Lord had truly sent him.
Right, because you got a lot of our people who preach peace. Peace, peace, shalom, shalom. Oh, the Most High wants us to be doing this and peaceful, not arguing, not debating, not doing that. Man, the Most High said, look, when you see peace, then you'll know that that's a prophet I actually sent. So for all the false prophets and the things that they declare falsely, the reason why you don't see them happening or coming to pass is because they're false prophets, right? That's all I needed from there. Let's go back to Genesis. Chapter 4, and let's pick up at verse 12.
Genesis chapter 4, verse 12. When thou tillest the ground, it shall not henceforth yield unto thee her strength. A fugitive and a vagabond shalt thou be in the earth.
Yep, so we can't overlook the fact that Cain was warned, just like all of us. God has given us a warning. If he's woken you up to the fact that you're an Israelite and that you have laws that you need to keep, that's you being warned. Because when you was in the world, you didn't know no better. You was just set for destruction. You was going to walk off the cliff, following the crowd. But consider us to be blessed and lucky because now we're actually being warned, right? And we have the same thing. We either do right and God's going to bless us, or we do foul, do wrong, and he's going to continue to deal with us like how he dealt with Cain from the very beginning, right? Harshly. Go ahead.
And Cain said unto the Lord, my punishment is greater than I can bear.
So now you got Cain sitting there crying about the punishment that was given to him. And even with that, still look how merciful the Most High God is, right? Go ahead.
Behold, thou hast driven me out this day from the face of the earth, and from thy face shall I be hid, and I shall be a fugitive and a vagabond in the earth, and it shall come to pass that every one that findeth me shall slay me.
Yep. So he was worried about saying, man, look, you done kicked me out. I'm about to be out here by myself. Anybody who come across me, they just going to want to slay me, even though he was worthy of it. But see, God, he wanted him to fulfill that punishment and really understand what he did wrong. He made him live. And that's one of the worst things, to know where you came from and to have fallen off, knowing that you cannot get back to where you fell from. That's one of the worst feelings. So he said, look, I'm going to set you up to where ain't nobody going to kill you because I want you to actually serve out your time. The Most High wanted him to feel that judgment. Go ahead.
And the Lord said unto him, therefore, whosoever slayeth Cain, vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold.
So the Most High, he had it to where there was a general understanding put out into the earth that nobody touches this man because you're going to get jacked up. I don't know what exactly that looks like. You got some people that try to break it down and say, oh, it was this. God did this. The Bible doesn't really specify, or at least from what I've read, right? Some people will say, oh, he changed his skin color so everybody would know that's Cain, or he put a big post up in his land. The Bible doesn't really detail, but it was an understanding that was put out. And God made sure everybody know, whoever touches this man, if you kill him, I'm going to deal with you 7 times worse. Go ahead.
Vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold. And the Lord set a mark upon Cain, lest any finding him should kill him.
Exactly. Now, I want to bring this out real quick. Go to Leviticus chapter 7 and verse 25. Because, again, there's so many parallels between the story of Cain and Abel and then, you know, the story of Jacob and Esau and just even us as Israelites and the laws that we have today. His punishment was that he was sent off, cast away, also known as being cut off from among our people, right? So let's read this. The book of Leviticus chapter 7, verse 25.
Leviticus chapter 7, verse 25. For whosoever eateth the fat of the beast, of which men offer an offering made by fire.
So the Most High, he's giving Israel the laws. Like, look, whichever one of y'all breaks this law, what? Go ahead.
Unto the Lord, even the soul that eateth it shall be cut off from his people.
Exactly. So we can see what that punishment really looks like. Cain detailed it. He said, look, you're cutting me off from everything and everybody I know, and you're going to hide your face from me. He said, everybody that comes in contact with me is going to want to kill me. That's what it was like as an Israelite, right? All the other nations already abhor us, and they're jealous of us, and they hate us. So imagine being an Israelite. You committed an offense worthy of death or worthy of this, to where you were cut off from among your people. That means you was pushed outside the gates, and you had to go fend in the world off by yourself and figure it out. 9 times out of 10, you wasn't going to survive, and if you did, it wasn't for long, because somebody was going to come across you and want to kill you, right? Just like Cain said. He said, look,
I shall be a fugitive and a vagabond in the earth, and it shall come to pass that everyone that findeth me shall slay me. Read on, keep reading Leviticus.
Moreover, ye shall eat no manner of blood, whether it be of fowl or of beast in any of your dwellings. Whatsoever so it be that eateth any manner of blood.
So we know there's a certain way we have to prepare and cook our meats, right? We're not eating bloody, uncooked stuff. That's unlawful. In so much, this is the punishment for doing so. Go ahead.
Even that soul shall be cut off from his people.
Exactly. You kicked out, estranged, right? Exiled, sent out of your natural habitat to figure it out there in life where you know you're not going to survive. And that's the scary part of being an Israelite that wants to do this thing on your own. Israelites, it's not a good thing to be off on your own, right? We keep trying to drive this point home to our people, hoping that one day they'll realize it and fully get it. If you're one of those Israelites who feel like you don't need nobody, you need to do this thing by yourself, but you're slowly coming to the realization that you do need help, and you need a body, you need a brotherhood, you need a sisterhood, reach out to us. True Nation Israelite Congregation. Hit us up on an email, reply@truenation.org. Let's talk. It's what we're here for, right? But that's all I needed for that. Let's go back to Genesis. And it's not really a long story, so, we're going to get the end of this and go ahead and close out and, get ready for next week's lesson, right, which should be a great one because there actually is a little bit more historical evidence to support some of the things, right, archaeology and things like that. There's not too much you can do with Cain and Abel except debate upon when they possibly could have lived. For people who really search the scriptures and people who have been studying and try to figure out how old the earth really is, they all agree for the most part that the earth is not older than 10,000 years. Contrary to science, right? They'll tell you where earth is, I believe, 41.5 billion years old. It's nonsense. The Bible don't say that, right? And there's a whole lot of history that's missing from that, right? But let's get that back in Genesis. Genesis chapter 4 and verse 15.
Genesis chapter 4, verse 15. And the Lord said unto him, therefore, whosoever slayeth Cain, vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold. And the Lord set a mark upon Cain, lest any finding him should kill him. And Cain went out from the presence of the Lord and dwelt in the land of Nod on the east of Eden. And Cain knew his wife.
And Cain knew his wife. And that's just something to put in there to give the understanding on them not being the only humans. I don't know how people have gotten to a space to where they're confused. They say Adam and Eve was the first humans. That is not what's recorded in Genesis. Hold that. Go back to Genesis chapter 1. And read verse 26.
Genesis chapter 1, verse 26. And God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea.
And let them have dominion over the fish of the sea. Mankind and womankind was already created. When we're dealing with Adam and Eve, we're dealing with who the Most High God chose to be his special people at that time. Go ahead.
And over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him.
Created he him. Read.
Male and female created he them.
So Adam and Eve was not the first people, because we could read in chapter 2. We're in chapter 1 right now. When we get to chapter 2, that's when Adam and Eve come into play, right? So jumping back over to chapter 4, when Cain was kicked out, the earth was already flooded with people. So he went and found somebody and got him a wife and ended up actually populating, right? Go ahead. Verse 17.
And Cain knew his wife, and she conceived and bare Enoch. And he builded a city and called the name of the city after the name of his son.
Right, so he actually went on and built a whole city and populated a whole city's worth of people. Go ahead.
And unto Enoch was born Irad, and Irad begot Mehuel, and Mehuel begot Methuselah, and Methuselah begot Lamech. And Lamech took unto him 2 wives.
So we actually have the first recording of somebody
being involved in a polygynous relationship, having more than one wife in the Genesis account, dealing with Cain and Abel. It was one of his offspring, right? Go ahead.
And Lamech took unto him 2 wives. The name of the one was Adah, and the name of the other Zillah.
So now we can actually see the genealogy of Cain. Read on.
And Adah bare Jabal. He was the father of such as dwell in tents, and of such as have cattle. And his brother's name was Jabal. He was the father of all such as handle the harp and organ.
Dealing with the musically talented, right? Go ahead.
And Zillah, she also bare Tubal, Cain, an instructor of every artificer in brass and iron.
So people who actually work in welding and things like that, these would be the masters of them at that time. Go ahead.
And the sister of Tubal, Cain, was Naamah. And Lamech said unto his wives, Adah and Zillah, hear my voice, ye wives of Lamech, hearken unto my speech, for I have slain a man to my wounding, and a young man to my hurt.
So we got another example, right, of a murder. Well, I'm not going to say a murder, but whatever the situation was between Lamech and the person, it ended up that person dying at the hands of Lamech, right? So read.
If Cain shall be avenged sevenfold, truly Lamech 70 and sevenfold.
Right, so he's saying, man, looking at the example of Cain, what's going to be the deal with me? Go ahead.
And Adam knew his wife again, and she bare a son, and called his name Seth, for God said she had appointed me another seed instead of Abel, whom Cain slew.
Right, so she ended up actually getting another son to replace the one that was murdered. Go ahead.
And to Seth, to him also there was born a son, and he called his name Enos. Then began man to call upon the name of the Lord.
Right, so we can see actually through how the righteous lineage, people actually start to worship and praise the Most High God again. And it shows why there's an immediate action needed when you have wickedness. You need to remove it, right? And that's what the principle was that our people needed to understand. Righteousness is never going to prevail as long as you got wickedness around. Because the Bible even says that, I'm having a brain fart. It says the righteous is more excellent than his neighbor, but the ways of the wicked seduce them. So when we're dealing with a situation and there's wickedness around, we have to do as the Most High dealt with Cain and remove it, Israel. You know, that's the principle, right? And being on lookout for danger and harm for our own souls, right? Giving us foresight of what our lives are going to look like as prophets of the Most High God. He said, look, don't be too confounded. Don't be scratching your head too much or be too confused on, you know, why you got certain people coming against you. He said, know that you was called for it. You're a prophet. And just like Christ had to explain to the people back in Luke, he said, look, the prophets have been getting killed, been having a bloodshed by wickedness, right? Those who want to partake in evil. Last scripture, let's get the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 12, verse 13. Book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 12 and verse 13. I hope everybody who's tuning in tonight is enjoying this lesson. If you are, go ahead and give us a thumbs up, like, share, subscribe. Send it to somebody who you've been talking to, trying to get them into the truth, right? And we know the truth to be not only acknowledging that we're Israelites, but knowing that we have to keep God's commandments, all right? And that's what this scripture is going to wrap up for us right here. Go ahead.
Ecclesiastes chapter 12, verse 13. Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter.
So this is the conclusion of the whole matter. At the end of the day, this is what our people should be focused on, not nothing else. Go ahead.
Fear God.
Fear the Most High. Be scared to know that if we disobey, there is a grave punishment that we are going to have to bear. Fear him. Let that be the reason why, first and foremost, you keep his commandments. And then through the keeping of his commandments, you'll learn to love the Most High God and be grateful for the life that he's given us, right? Read.
Fear God and keep his commandments.
Fear God, keep the commandments. Read.
For this is the whole duty of man.
This is your whole duty. I don't care what you thought you was put here on this earth to do. You thought you was here to climb the corporate ladder or be the world's best entrepreneur or the world's best basketball player. No. Your job is to fear God and keep the commandments and teach others to do the same. Okay, Israel? So we're going to go ahead and end the lesson with that unless you got anything else you want to bring out, my brother.
No, that's good.
Con, all praise be to the Most High. So, there goes the history of, Cain and Abel, getting an understanding on what we're really to do here as prophets, what we're really to do as servants, understanding that a lot of the wickedness and persecution that we're going to face in this life is going to be from our own family, right? The family of Israel. Understanding that God has already laid out the foundation of what we're supposed to be doing. He said earlier in the book, I give you this day the option to choose life or death. And the Most High made it easy for us. He said, look, choose life. God knows what he's going to do to the wicked. And it's so cold because he doesn't even want to do it. God said he doesn't have any pleasure in destroying the wicked. He'd rather that they repent. And that's one of the coldest realities we have to deal with, because at times we try to save everybody in the nation, our grannies, our aunties, our uncles, and sometimes you just have to be okay with the fact that, they may not get it right now. But we, as servants of the Most High, have to continue to be that example and do the right thing and show forth the world what they're supposed to do as far as keeping these commandments and adhering to the Most High God. So we're going to go ahead and sign out. Israel, again, like, share, subscribe. Continue to support us on YouTube and Facebook at True Nation Israelite Congregation. And y'all have a good night. Shalom.
Shalom.